I'm really happy to be here. Faculty of I was here. Works. I was here 2 years ago for the celebration of innovation. Met some folks here, and I'm really excited to be back and being more. So I wanted to give kind of a brief overview on my background, and then I'm going to talk about fundraising and talk about valuation. Probably less of valuation because it's a really big topic, but just a tiny bit to introduce it. In any time while we're doing this, if you have a question, please let me know. We can stop and go off and whatever maybe like sense we need. So I've got a presentation that we can deviate from as is helpful. So please interrupt me anytime. So this is a company that I used to work for that you may or may not know. It's called CD Baby. It's a digital music distribution company. So we obviously sent music to all these music stores when it was their chief technology officer. We sent, at that time, about 3 million songs to iTunes and Spotify. We'll talk a bit about them later. There's sort of reason I bring them up. So after that, I don't know if anyone happens to know where this is, by chance. Yeah, this is New Orleans after the hurricane. So I was living in Portland, Oregon, on the West Coast. I was a CD Baby, and then I moved to Louisiana. And I moved to Louisiana. I worked for the government after the storm. This is, of course, what I'm saying. This is a website from the government. And what we're doing was trying to build the economy in Louisiana after Hurricane Katrina. What I focused on specifically, we're bringing in tech companies. So we have programs for tech companies where they can get certain tax benefits. We would try to help them out finding places to set up a studio. And it worked pretty well. And the companies you may know, like, well, IBM and Electronic Arts and GE and some other ones. But the reason it's up here, the reason why it's really a sort of experience that is because I had a chance for about 3 years to travel all around and meet with executives and people who are starting companies, building companies, or growing people, learn about their operations, learn about what they need for their company to grow. So I've been lucky enough to work on that side, and then work on the startup side. Because of that startup, we can bring them all up. It's done well. So we did Startup Weekend in New Orleans several times. We did the Startup Next program, which is a pre-accelerator program. So this is for companies who are more developed than the Startup Weekend is for the federal company. And 7 weeks long, we graphics get into accelerators that you know, like Techstars and type of startups. So yeah, so it's all part of Up Global, which is an organization based in Seattle. So I left government and I went to work at Loyola University, which is down. This is down south on the Gulf Coast of America. It's very tropical, so we've got all these palm trees like you have in this part of the world too sometimes. And I was fortunate enough to be a professor at Loyola, taught entrepreneurship there. And then kind of I enjoyed it. It was an honor to do it, but then after a while, I felt like academia was kind of felt like it was a little bit crowded and small. I felt a little bit stuck. So I was lucky enough to move to a new school, which is Holt. This is our campus in San Francisco. We have campuses in San Francisco, of course, London, Boston, Shanghai, and Dubai. And for anyone who's going to be joining the program, coming to Silicon Valley next month, we're going to plan some kind of an event, hopefully kind of a demo day, where those companies can present and we can meet our students. At Holt, we have, just in San Francisco alone, we have over 100 nationalities. We have 140 nationalities across the 5 campuses. So our name is Holt International Business School, and we sort of pride ourselves on that. So we have to create some connections with big students in the MENA region, companies who are coming in whenever as possible. So that's me and why I'm here. And my phone mouse is kind of not working. That's okay. So we're going to talk about fundraising. CD Baby, you guys remember this hopefully. Okay. CD Baby was sold for $22 million in 2008, which was really exciting and crazy and scary and like, in some ways a terrible thing and crazy process, but in the end it was great. So I know some of you know a good deal about fundraising. Anyone want to guess how much money we raised before we sold the company? Any guesses? It's a 10-year-old company. We sold it. We had about $50 million a year top line revenue in commerce. $250,000 clients, artists, millions of customers. Any just random guesses how much we raised? $1 million in the back? Any other ideas? Zero. Well done. CD Baby never raised any money. And that for me was a really important experience. And I didn't start this company, just to be clear. I didn't found CD Baby. It was important to me to see a company that did very well, an internet-based company, and from day one, it was driven by profitability. So I set that up as part of this talk just to say there are two ways we can go as a company. And one is certainly funding, and that makes sense in certain scenarios, and the other is not to do anything if we've done that funding. So look at these. We'll kind of divide them up into funding, as we're calling it, and bootstrapping. You guys have heard the idea of bootstrapping? Is that familiar? So all we're saying with bootstrapping is any way you can do it. Credit cards, borrowing money from your mom and dad, sell your car, working a day job and coming home and coding for 8 hours and getting 4 hours of sleep and doing it. Hopefully it works out. But whatever you have to do to fund it yourself, that's bootstrapping. There's an advantage about bootstrapping that I feel like you have here in Palestine. And this slide, there's a region in Palestine that speaks to the region. I heard that a junior level developer in Palestine might start out making around $1,500 US at the early stage. Is that more or less right? What's the beginning salary for a developer? 800.
700.
Wow. Okay. So that's really low, obviously. Wow. I think that if you were to hire a developer in San Francisco, probably starting out might be 8,000 or 10,000, so like 10 times that much. I don't say this to you move to San Francisco, but to let you know that your money goes a lot further. And if you're profitable, or if you just raise a little money, you've got this idea of runway, right? Where the money you have, how long does it last? You've got 6 months of runway. That means 6 months until your current operations are out of money. So anyway, so you guys live in a part of the world where you can have a lot of runway, which is great. Okay, so we're going to come back to this slide over and over again. What this basically does, we'll zoom in on it in a second. It shows the stages typically of a startup. Right? So you're starting out, it's just you got a co-founder, you get some friends and family to invest, so on and so on. This is basically our roadmap to talk about today. Anytime you want to stop it, you see it. This is a long, I should say, complicated slide about valuation. We say valuation, you're talking about what the value of your company is when you decide to take money from somebody. So I think one thing that's maybe a little confusing sometimes is, what happens when I get investment? What am I actually doing with my company? If you invest money in my company, what's happening? What am I giving you for the investment?
It's
part of my company.
Yeah.
I'm giving you part of my company, you're giving me money. So you're in the business of selling your company. You're sitting down at the table in negotiation. And you're on one side, you've got company, you're on the other, you've got money. And you're in the negotiation. So how do you know how much your company is worth? We'll come back to it. It's a really hard question to answer. We're not going to go that far. Okay, So regardless if you're bootstrapping or if you're raising money, you all know this. Who's got a business model canvas? You should already know this. Maybe Jerome has one, but the rest of you probably have. So regardless of what you're doing, you've got a business model, right? You figured it out, or you're figuring out, you're iterating on what the business model is. This is all stuff you guys know. And basically, what we're trying to figure out is what kind of business model are you building? Meaning, how are you innovating on it? Are you innovating in the industry incrementally, which is to say, in steps, or as the term is in Silicon Valley, disruptively? And there's two types. I'll tell you a story about a friend of mine. He's got a very typical disruptive business model, much like the ones I'm sure you know a lot about. This is my friend Yusuf, and he's got a great beard going on, as you can see. He puts beard oil on there. It's like a thing in America. It's like simply beard oil. This is the company he's with. It's called Remark. It's a really cool system where when you're editing videos, you can share comments across the web between you, the client, and the editor, the other editors, like say your ad agency or whomever is working on the project. They're doing really well. They got accepted into an accelerator, 500 startups that you've probably heard of. They were the first. They were in the first batch of 500. This is the new San Francisco wing of 500 that we're sitting now. So 500 startups invest in companies all over the world. A little different from some Silicon Valley investors because their portfolio has dedicated funds in Mexico, in Brazil, in China, as well as the US. They really specialize in foreign companies. So his company was accepted. They went to San Francisco. You all know TechCrunch. This just happened. The TechCrunch Disrupt conference, right? So we talked about disruption. It's like this kind of buzzword, and so much so, like this conference had like 8,000 people go to it. I knew that this was like a big deal and a buzzword and like kind of a little out of control when there's a show on HBO that my friend Yusuf was on that was supposed to be based at the Disrupt conference in San Francisco. Does anyone know the show Silicon Valley? Has anyone seen that show? If you haven't, you should see it. It's funny. It's on HBO, the American network, and it's about startups in Silicon Valley. It's actually pretty accurate. It's a comedy, but it's pretty accurate. So this is the star of the show, and Yusuf was on the show. It was like kind of crazy. And it's again said the TechCrunch Disrupt conference. So the point we're going to bring at the conference is everyone's obsessed with disruption. We need to figure out what that is to see if your company is the kind of company that an investor is going to want to invest in, or if it doesn't make sense. So I love this quote. Reid Hoffman, who founded LinkedIn, was speaking at South by Southwest a few years ago. And he says, disruption is turning $10 of profit into $1 profit. You guys have any guesses like what he's trying to say there? So it's like saying disruption, this thing that Silicon Valley is really excited about and going for, is taking $10 and turning it into $1. Does that make sense?
I don't get it.
Sorry.
That means reinvestment of capital.
Disrupting the market.
What?
Disrupting the market, though.
Like how do you mean? Sorry.
Like reducing the market share and by disrupting how the market works.
Yeah. So what he's saying is, disruption is taking $10 of someone else's money and making it into your $1. Okay? So how did you buy a plane ticket last time you flew somewhere? Did you go to a travel agent? How did you buy your plane ticket? Something.com, whatever it is, right? So that travel agent used to make, who knows, maybe $100 off booking a fare for someone. Now Orbitz or Expedia or Booking.com is pretty damn happy to make $10 or less off booking a ticket. So this is what the point is, right? It's about this massive shift away from the existing industry to something new that's scalable And that while maybe doesn't make as much money out of it, it's money to you, and it's something you can do repeatedly over and over and over. So only certain kinds of businesses really do this, right? Not all of them. So that's what we're going to look at. Okay. So these are some examples, and you can even debate these. The first one I already mentioned is a travel agency. And I thought of some others, like enterprise software reseller. W Hotels is a chain, I think it's in the US and Europe now. A taxi app you can call taxi. And then like an e-commerce store. There's some examples I was thinking. These are all businesses which can grow, they can add branches, they can add people, they can expand, they can do well, they can be great businesses. They probably wouldn't be disruptive though, as per this definition. So this one's a good one, we talked about that. Travel agency, the sort of disruptive equivalent of that would be something like Expedia. So if you're an enterprise software company, you guys know like SAP, obviously Oracle, all these big giant software companies. What do? They come to your company, you pay some consulting fees to a consultant to install and configure the software. It's an existing business, it's a very good business, lots of money in it. But what's an example of something that's more disruptive from traditional enterprise software? Yeah, social media, but think about something maybe like for the enterprise stuff. Yeah. So what's a company like? Yeah. I put Dropbox. But maybe Dropbox, maybe Box.com, maybe Salesforce, right? Salesforce is a great example. No one's having to come and configure Salesforce. You have to hire PricewaterhouseCoopers to come in and spend 4 weeks doing it. You just turn it on, and it's there. Okay. The W, these fancy hotels. They're all over the US and Europe. They're probably elsewhere too. They've got a unique brand, young people, and the sexy hotels. They've made a lot of money. But what's an example of something that's just totally taking the hotel market and flipped it upside down? Airbnb. You see it all the time. I'll never say that hotel again, except the big ones in the mall. Taxi requesting an app. So you got an app, you're like, I'm going to call a taxi. What's the business that's flipped that one? You guys use it here? Uber? Or there's actually another one you guys may not know called Lyft. Yeah, big mustache. Exactly.
Or get taxi here.
For what?
In Jerusalem, not in Bologna, you get a taxi,
So, but that still uses real taxis, right? It still uses actual taxi cabs.
Yeah.
How is Lyft different, though, than just doing a taxi app? Yeah, you can drive your own car. So they can scale much, much, much quicker. You're not just trying to recruit taxis, but you're basically saying any one of us here who's either not drunk and has a driver's license can be a taxi driver, right? That's the model. So it's an explosive growth. You guys may not know what I'm thinking of for this, but any ideas of a really disruptive kind of e-commerce model for men or for anyone? No, those are pretty traditional. Those are more retail. I was thinking about the shaving one. I don't know if you remember the shaving. Dollar Shave Club. Does anyone know this? I think it's for $1 a month. It sends you razor blades. And so, that's all you do. Period. There's no checkout cart. There's no here's a big selection. There's no crazy market in this razor, that razor. You pay $1 a month, you get razor blades. Done. Really? And they've raised $100 million. I'm not even kidding. Interesting. This is the insane world that I live in Silicon Valley, where blades for $1 a month raises $100 million.
They cost 16 cents.
Yeah. And everyone gets the same thing. All you have to do is use your address. It's $1 a month, $1 a month, $1 a month. So these are all crazy companies. Some of them are working, some of them may not work in the long run. But this is kind of the goal of this disruption that I'm talking about. And the reason it matters is because it's what funders are most often looking for. Because they're looking for, anyone know the numbers? Like, how much is an investor looking to make generally on a venture-backed company? Sorry?
30%?
Let me come back to that answer. That's not exactly the right time, but I really remember it.
Just trying to make something better than that, I guess. There's something out there right now.
They want to make a better return than the bank. They want to make a lot better return. Yeah, 10x minimum. So minimum. They want to make a minimum of 10 times the amount of money they put in your company. If I give you $1 million, I'm expecting a minimum of 10 million back, but I'm really thinking you could go to 50 million. There's 50 million. Wow. So pretty risky, right? So how does that all work? I mean, unless I'm a really, really good investor, which there aren't many that are out there, I'm not going to make that hit on every single time. So what you're doing is, as an investor, you're spreading your investments over lots of companies. And there's this kind of baseball analogy from America. And you say, well, we invested in 10 companies, and we're hoping to get maybe a grand slam, a couple of runs batted in, a couple of base hits, but probably it's going to be like 7 strikeouts and a few hits, right? Like, the odds are spread apart. We're talking about that in a minute. So, just to differentiate, these are kind of general, but incremental business model, it's on the left. Bootstrapping, it's bank loans, it's credit cards, it's whatever you're doing to get profitability, and then sustain. And then, you're still going to grow, but the curve for disruptive business is more typically, which we'll look at, just kind of goes crazy. It's this thing called the hockey stick, right? Think about a hockey stick on the side. How does it go? Right? Everyone laughs at hockey sticks. It's usually not right. It's in the back page of the business plan. The far growth's going to be like this, or everyone says that. That's kind of not right. But in any case, we're not doing that here. We're looking for incremental growth over time. Disruptive is kind of the opposite. Typically, you're taking funding, you go through this insane growth curve, and the difference is that what happens to you? So, sorry, what's your name? Okay. So, what's your company called? Okay. So if I invest money in you, right? How many get my money back? If I invest money in someone's company, I'm a venture capitalist, how will I get my money back? Yeah. Could be, but it's probably selling the company. So what you're doing is, you're taking investment, you're basically saying on that day, someday this company's not going to be mine. Probably sooner than later, right? As soon as I can get this company to a certain point, it's not going to be mine. So that's interesting to think about, right? The goal, once you're taking that money, is this company moving farther and farther and farther away from you. What happens when, I'm going a little bit off the script here, but you take some money, let's say I take a bunch of money. And you invest in me, you invest in me, you invest in me, and now I've got like a bunch of investor money, and you guys sit on my board, the 3 of you sit on my board, I sit on my board, my co-founder sits on the board, there's 5 of us. You don't like me at running the company. Well, do I have to stay as the CEO? I can get kicked out of my own company. You guys can decide, this guy, he could start it, he can't really take it to the next level. We control the board, this guy's out of here. Imagine that. Not only are you saying, oh, okay,
This happens, or
this happened to a personal friend of mine. Yeah, absolutely.
Happened to Steve Jobs.
Yeah, true. Steve Jobs. Yeah. It's happened a lot, and it happens a lot. So this is not just about someone helping you out, right, with money. This is about someone taking the company, owning a piece of it, and eventually you lose control of the company.
I take the biggest part, so nobody no other part can sell this company, or I can hold it. Like I take 60% of my company,
Yeah.
so 40% will not take it or sell it eventually, or keep me out.
You can try. You can try. Mark Zuckerberg is one of the best people at this, like keeping control of his board and keeping controlling interest in Facebook. But Facebook was a company, has been a company where he turned down investment all the time. I mean, he was generating so much traffic and not as much revenue in the beginning, but he's a rare example of someone who really helped control this company because he was doing so well. But it's a balance. And the more you need the money, the less you have to give up. You know, you got to have more money, let's say. You got to take this $2 million. Okay, we're going to bring in the board seats this investor. Next thing you know, you've lost control of the board. It's pretty common. Yeah.
Is it so difficult to hold this company, or not to get kicked of your own company? Is it that difficult, or it's easy? Did Mark Zuckerberg have very hard times doing that, or it's either just no?
He's the exception. Facebook is such a rocket ship that he could turn down investment and win his own terms. But most companies don't have that kind of clout because they're not doing it well. That's why he could do it. Does that make sense? He was doing so well, he had the opportunities, but it's not good.
And sometimes I mean, probably that thing that investors before, sometimes
Yeah,
CEO or
sure.
something, and the founder is supposed to take things from the
Sure.
Not the best thing. I mean, there are good. There are good and bad.
Yeah, well, I think it's a very good point because you're talking about what's good for the company. Yeah. Right. So for the company, it could be the best decision ever. It could be like, this person has a vision, they go together, it's not quick, if we're all going to put money in, their interest is best served before. The should say, this is best for
نعمل business.
Of course, another company, but they.
This will cut.
No.
اشرح.
And there are complicated things about kind of stock you have in terms of when a liquidation happens, you sell your company to some other company like that. You get paid back first or last, or your investors get paid. So amazing things can happen, and the odds are generally pretty tough. So we've got these successes that are way up here, it's incredible. You know, very few that do incredibly well, and then which don't do as well. This is a power law, right? This is the credit principle for taking forward. So this goes back to investors, right? They're expecting, investors are trying to get way out here, but the truth is, 9 times out of 10 will be down here. And then all of this is entrepreneurial. That's where most companies go. And the point is, this kind of investing in these kind of companies are incredibly risky. They're the riskiest kind of investment, basically in the world. So California's a patent system for all the public employees in government and schools. It's called CalPERS. And CalPERS has, I think, trillions of dollars that they invest, and they have this spectrum, you know, right? So for safe investments, bonds, and mutual funds, and stocks. And a lot of the venture money came out of California, the 70s to the 90s, into the early 2000s, with a tiny little sliver of CalPERS money. It was probably worth about $1 billion. And they said, well, if all this risk was spread out, we put a tiny little piece in the riskiest asset class, basically known to man, which is tech startups. And so it's a small amount, and CalPERS doesn't even do it anymore. Pull back from putting money in the fund. But just to give you a perspective on kind of the investment mindset. Okay. So we want to talk about what investors care about, and we want to assume we're talking about smart investors. Investors who are smart, hopefully they know your market really well, probably better than you do. They have experience investing, and things like that. So I wanted to ask you guys, what do you think the most important criteria for a venture capitalist might be? But let's think about That's definitely true. Scalability is definitely true. I never got back to your 30 or 40%. I'm sorry, I do that. Okay, scalability. Let's think about you walking into a VC's office. And let's say, what are the things that you or she would be considering?
لو ضربت تمام
Need,
لو ضربت
revenue. I'm sorry? Market opportunity, so like size of the market. Anything else? Anything that's really big?
Which one?
Yeah. So we're talking about revenue, but also there's something else that's a growth metric that's not necessarily cash revenue.
لا أوه ما
So meaning
Cash flow.
no money involved. Kind of like user base, but it's got a special name. The first usage and everything else. Traction. So this is one way that if you know AngelList, this is how they Evolve makes the criteria to traction, you, the team, the product. Okay, let's just stop for a second. You talk to an entrepreneur, it's the first thing they talk about. The product. One of the two most important things, actually more than the product, is how much traction you have and who you are. Something to think about, right? You, the founder, is more important than what your idea is. Does anyone happen to know, there's an accelerator called Y Combinator, started by Jimmy and Paul Graham. And one quote of his that I respect a lot is he says, we invest in founders, not companies. Right? It's a really important thing to think about. Both for what you do, but also who you choose to look into the product. And then, does anyone know what this is? Social proof? Has anyone heard that term before? Social proof is it's kind of a Silicon Valley inside baseball kind of thing. It basically says who vouches for you. Who says that, going back to number 2, you and your team are strong, you can execute, you can take this idea where it needs to go, and in a year we're not going to have to replace you to take control of the board. Right? You need to basically show that you've got support from credible people. Markets there. Often people talk about a big market, but you can make lots of money in a small market if you dominate it too. So a lot of VCs will kind of see this being important. This is not fast enough. And then you get smaller and smaller. We have the pitch, the elevator pitch, your pitch deck. So relatively speaking, if you're a really good founder, you've got traction, why is it a crowd? It really takes a lot of time. So when people, and this is just me kind of myself out now, but when people spend a lot of time in their PowerPoint presentation, a lot of time perfecting their elevator pitch, and doing a lot of stuff, it's like, just get a bunch of users. Just have a lot of actual success that you can demonstrate of people coming to your app, converting, using it, engaging with it, coming back to it. And a lot of this becomes irrelevant. Yeah,
So you evaluating the company, does it for an expert? Yeah, that doesn't matter the most user base, not users for actual revenue. So especially at the end stage, startups, it doesn't matter if you have a big user base, there's more user base that actually paying.
I have a great answer for you. It depends. It depends on what your company is doing, right? So, a very good segue to the next slide. One of the important milestones for a tech company, this is talking about a Series A, generally about $1 million or $2 million round, first big round. And I pulled from a presentation some ideas of what this might look like on the streets. You guys might guess. So, do you have a company?
It's a very official.
Okay. What do you guys do?
It's a guidance application. It's also powered with actually guide.
Okay.
So basically, people leave messages.
Oh, okay. Like leaving a kind of
Geotag,
trail of
geotag, like geotag location, what else is
So this is kind
so
of
for such applications, is, to attract more people, it takes lots of time until actually makes money.
understood. Yeah. So here's a few buckets. Enterprise software, marketplace, that can mean a lot of different kinds of things. Like obviously, we're buying and selling, two-sided market and marketplace. I would say that probably falls in the social network bucket. We're not really talking about Facebook type application. We say that anything except the social tie-in, and then e-commerce, which is pretty mature, has pretty clear metrics on it. So again, talking about Series A, any thoughts on how many users or how much money you might need to have for enterprise software with Series A? Anyone doing enterprise software?
There's a startup in Gaza too.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
What was the EWBI? Oh yeah, okay. Okay. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I did. It's like data warehousing.
Yeah.
It's kind of an alternative to like the big ERP system. But George, what's your startup?
I mean, I've done enterprise software, I've done integration software, and I've done healthcare software, and right now I'm patent. But that's very niche.
Yeah.
It's extremely niche. But the last one I would say probably like 5 Bitcoin, or maybe I don't know.
You're saying
I'm just throwing it
no.
out.
You're talking about big enterprise, like a big crazy 400,000 company. Yeah.
So we use freelancers, it depends.
It does depend. There are some ideas in the next slide that I'll share with you that are pretty into this. Any thoughts on for a social network, how many users might be a good metric to track attention? Millions? Okay. Yeah.
The important is the increasing of users, not the number of users currently.
So we're talking about when you go to a VC, like what's the number you
Like a social network. Like it's not important that you have 1,000 users. It's important that it's increasing. You have like every day like 50 users, and the next day you have 75, like that.
the growth rate. So what we're illustrating is it depends. It's super hard to value startups, but here are some ideas. And this is from Angel List. And that's a great slide. So they were saying for big enterprise, George, we're talking about a couple of pilot companies and some revenue. Being 2 really massive companies for big enterprise. For social, 100,000 users. For marketplace, doing 50,000 in cash at least a month. In e-commerce, 50,000 revenue a month. E-commerce is going to be very, very different sector, so we think about it. But the point is, this is what counts, right? So the product sounds good, great. There are probably 10 other people working on it, if not like 50 around the world. The team matters, but at the end of the day, it's like what we really have done. So that's just putting it all together. And we'll go back to, which is our slide of the state of the economy.
Can you go back one for the enterprise one?
Yeah.
I mean, I managed to close this for the enterprise one with one client. I managed to close 1,000 seats.
Yeah.
With one client. So we were doing bootstrapping by getting the client to pay for the building of the product.
Sure.
People, I don't understand why do they have a reference of $10 a seat. I mean, that it really depends what the enterprise software is. I mean, the number of seats I can understand, but the pricing per seat is highly dependent on what the enterprise software is.
Right.
I mean, I don't think it's a reference either. Maybe they're referring to how much you're getting per month. I mean, at that, we're talking about 10,000 a month.
Yeah.
Is that the reference here? I mean, is that what
Yeah. These are like close to all numbers.
Right.
But I think the reason why we're seeing $10 a month is for a lot of like enterprise startups that are really low price point. You think about Box.com. Salesforce is quite cheap, but something like Zoho or something like that. I think it's the reason that we're going to get $10 a month.
Yeah.
So I forgot to ask, who's raised money for their startup already? Is it me? No? Are you in the process of doing it?
Or if you look at that photo,
Oh, okay, right. Because your seed investment from investors.
right?
Your seed investment. From
Yeah.
investment. Okay. Let's see on this one. These are pretty self-explanatory, but it pulls into a visual so we talked about. So you start out, and it's two lonely people sitting in a garage or an office or a co-working space, and it's like, hey, I got this idea, and then of course someone joins you and decide how to do the equity. And then you bring in the friends, family, and fool stage, which is your uncle who's the dentist who knows nothing about your company or your market, but he's got some money and you need some money. And so you go from there, better to worse. This is something called an option pool. Anyone know what an option pool is? So, as you can see, an option pool is part of the pie here. And it's shares you're setting aside for later. Anyone know what they're set aside for? I guess. Yeah, it's for employees. Anyone who you're going to be bringing in. Could be for advisors. It's not typically for other investors. They will continue to dilute your share of the company as you bring them in. But those options are meant to be for, you bring an amazing CTO on board, and maybe they pick that person 5% of the company, or you've got a board of advisors, and they get 1% of the company. So you start to see, as we go here, when you start out at 100, that starts to sort of whittle away a little bit. Your first round, your seed round, that's where you really break out some equity in the company. I'm going to talk about this in valuation right now. Valuation is a huge topic. You don't have to go through it. No one agrees on it. So, just to be clear, equity in the company calculates how much the company is worth and puts a price on that. So if I am going to invest $1 million in your company and you give me 20% of your company, then we're saying the company is worth $5 million. So when I give you the money and you say how much of the company you get, we make up a number. So right now, you guys are in Dropbox. The number that people have made up is that they're worth $10 billion. They can't walk into a bank and pull $10 billion out from the cashier, legally, but the people who put money into them all have come to a consensus that for the amount of company they've gotten, the company's worth $10 billion. As we know, with companies like Groupon and some others, those numbers can really rapidly fluctuate. So it's all kind of a construct. Okay. And then debt doesn't have any value in the company. But this is important. It can lead to ownership later by these investors. So, how to value an early stage company? It's kind of impossible. You have no revenue, or you have very little revenue. You don't really know how big your market's going to be. You're maybe less than a year old. I would argue to say, again, the same scenario of us investing in 20%. You invest in 20% of my company, rather. How do you have any idea that my company's worth $5 million? What's a golf reference? Which way is the wind blowing? You have no idea, right? Maybe it's worth $5 million, maybe it's worth $10 million. You're getting it earlier, which for an investor means more, two things actually, more risk and more, potential return. But as far as putting a number on it, it's complicated, and right now for tech startups, no one agrees. So does anyone know how we deal with this now? At least in America, normally. What do you do for early stage investment? Where you can invest in the companies, but it's too early to value it. Convertible debt. Convertible debt is really important. It's a really important instrument to allow you to raise money, but basically not ripping yourself off and giving away too much of your company. So So why do we have convertible debt? There's a pragmatic reason. There's less legality around it. Convertible debt, pretty standard form. I'll explain what it is exactly in a second. But it's pretty standard procedure. You're not buying the company. It's quicker, which is better when you're a startup and you're compared to the time you're a very small staff. Like I said, there's standard terms. They're accepted in the Valley, in the American, and parts of the world. And convertible debt, convertible debt's more fair than trying to value it. It's more fair for the investor, and it's more fair for the company. Write this in. Do you have something? We don't have a marker. Those are the board? Yeah. You can just talk about it. Okay. So, what happens when you go into a bank and get a loan? You're expected to do what?
Want to know what your credit is.
Yeah. And they give you a loan and then give you what with that money. Eventually. Yeah, you pay it back. And so that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about you putting up collateral or you having to prove your credit necessarily or any of those things. Convertible debt is intentionally debt that's lent to the startup, to the corporation. It's not really expected to be paid back. Technically, legally, it could be paid back. But again, the kinds of companies that are being invested in are this disruptive model where the growth is so exponential and profits are probably so far away, it's silly to think they're going to pay that money back. But that's what it is. No one's surprised by that, including convertible debt. You're doing convertible debt, you put, let's say, $100,000 into my company, in convertible debt. We haven't said how much my company's worth. We haven't put a valuation on it. You don't have a percentage in my company. You have this thing. We're calling it convertible debt. And so let's say then later, I show traction, I attract investment, I get this first Series A investment, and that's when we price my company. We say my company's worth $5 million. Okay? Whatever the person, if you were my Series A investor, we put $1 million in, you got 20% of my company, we price it at $5 million. Then we go back to you, who gave me $100,000 in convertible debt, and now your $100,000 has a value. The convertible debt has a value once we value the company in Series A. Does that make sense? Kind of. We're delaying the process of valuing the company until it makes sense to value it, and at that point, your money converts into shares, and you then become an owner. And oftentimes, the way it works and makes more sense, you have a preferred deal where you're not just getting one multiple of what the share, you get several multiples. So for $100,000, from a $5 million valuation, that would be 5%. But it would be a preferential deal. You would get 3x that. So you're going in early, you get a certain multiple of the price of the stock. You can value the stock. To buy more.
So they would say, okay, it's 100,000. It's within a 2-year period of Series A.
Yeah.
As if you put 130. You would get sometimes there's a percentage rather than the multiple. You might get the multiple in the exit on the same terms that the preferred A. But that depends on the negotiated terms of the VC that comes in.
Right.
Yeah, because you cannot pre-negotiate it.
Well, the convertible debt investor could have a additional valuation. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like to make up for the, you have a higher upside.
Yeah. Yeah. When the shares are priced, you get more for your money. Yeah. So I know it's a bit arcane, and me sitting here waving my arms from these things good. But it's that you're putting money in, but you don't have to value your company yet, which is good, because I think there's danger of you sell your company for X percent. You have a very successful company, you probably sold it for $5 million. Right? So That's the sort of more
So what if it was a different seat?
if the company,
Is it back?
no, it's guaranteed by the company, not by the individual. So he would not be, in the scenario I'm talking about, which is most common, he's not personally liable for that money back. The company would,
So if it liquidates, it'll get like first dibs on anyway.
the investment would, yes. Yes. But the individual founder would not be obligated to do that back. Yeah.
He's actually high for it. Very high.
For the,
The one gives you $100,000. Yes.
but you know, it's high risk whether or not he's doing convertible debt, whether he owns 80% of the company. It's still incredibly high risk. You know, I mean, the risk is kind of constant.
One could argue that it's more risk than him doing the valuation. Let's say valuation is stupid, do it now. Let's say he did valuation and he got equity in the company.
Yeah.
Wouldn't having a debt note be better for you than having equity in the company? Because you have a preferential, if the company fails and there is liquidation and there are assets, you would have first the response. As that point, you know?
Yeah, I think, I mean, you can have the same arrangement as an equity. You can have that same preferential treatment being an equity investor at the very early stage, where you have the most preferred liquidation preference.
Never higher than a debt note, right?
Right, and I'm saying if you choose between the two, if there's only equity or only debt, you can still have the same terms as an equity investor as the debt. But I think I follow it. If there were both, then the debt holders probably would be high. Yeah. The other thing is psychological. If I do an early round of my company and I just sell too much of it for too little, that becomes this kind of weight on me, where it's like, God, I love this company, they're doing great. You know, I sold 50% of it for $100,000, 3 years ago, and it's going to IPO, and I'm going to stand and make like 5% of what I might have done differently. That really weighs on the company, not just the founder, but everyone else in the company who has stock options because they're an early employee, or maybe an investor who came later on who just couldn't get a good deal of investing in it and was just business in it for that person to participate in the investment round. So selling this part of your company early has a lot of bad effects, even in the minds of where you're going. The little that I advocate is good because it keeps everything open. Until it's time to do that pricing, you just don't know and you're waiting. So this slide I'll just quickly describe. At the end of Series A, we're just kind of further adding people in. So the option pool is still there. First employees get some stock. Everyone's share gets smaller. People in the dark. The circle here. And then, of course, we can have anything happening here from an IPO to an acquisition, or what's called an acqui-hire, which is where basically you're really getting hired homework for a company. And you're kind of taking some of the debt off, maybe repaying part of the money to investors, but you're really not walking away from the meeting your debt, and you can say you got acquired, then you go work with this. So let me give you a few quick things I want to say. All my own opinion. Bootstrap as long as you can. Period. That's my personal advice. Funding is last. Funding takes time. It's a pain. It's complicated. And the fact is, if you have a great company and a great product, people love it. That's what's important. In the same way, fundraise only when you have real customer demand. You may have a fantastic product, but going back to the traction piece, if no one's using it yet, and you can't prove that to investors, you're sitting on a table with them, they're going to say, okay, well, you can't show me that this is really taking off, so necessarily they're going to ask for a lot more than you do. So just fundraise when you have success. You market, but not as well as your investor. If your investor doesn't know your market, probably better than you and have connections that can take you places that you couldn't go ordinarily. it's the idea of dumb money, right? It's money you can't really advise you. It's going to be freaking out at all the wrong times, getting excited for all the wrong reasons. It's going to put you on an emotional roller coaster that it's not moving on and beyond. That's the worst case scenario, but you want to find a good fund with community. This is a nice trick that you need money, just ask for an opinion. So you say, hey, we're really growing, and like all this crazy stuff's happening, we're trying to figure out how to staff up, and they'll take you a coffee and give you your advice and like stuff you touch about our company. Get people excited about what's actually happening with it. You call up and say, we're looking for money, we want to do a pitch deck with you, blah, 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 blah. Whether or not the person you end up taking a coffee with actually be an investor, getting excitement that's real in the company is so much more empowered than we're raising money. It's pretty dead. It's pretty dead in the water. I guess lastly, funding is something you have to be successful, and it doesn't measure your success. There's a pretty big myth that we've raised money, we're successful, and it's absolutely totally mistaken. So I appreciate your time, and if you haven't met, I hope to meet. Thanks. There's any questions, by the way? You have the answers now. Yeah.
Isn't there like special cases like one came to someone who found money, tell the idea, and then this investor, wow, yeah, that's a great idea, let's do it, or it's out of range.
So what?
Like the one who invests don't see any risk in it, and it's a great idea, it's something that it almost surely will succeed.